Hey everybody, Mike Burkholder, Contra Costa today. We've been on a little hiatus due to the weather and a leaky roof right above where we actually film. So we are back, and I have Antioch's former mayor, Wade Harper, who is
Hello.
also a former school board member, former police officer, world-class bowler,
That's right.
and now an author. So, what have you been doing this last year that, you've kind of just been out of the limelight a little bit, and, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been up to a few things. I have a 19-month-old grandson, and so I'm a grandfather now. That keeps me kind of busy. I enjoy my little grandson, taking him to daycare, spending time with him. Yes, I am on a couple bowling teams. Our team's in first place right now. Had a tournament in Las Vegas. But the main thing, I've always wanted to write a book. I've written stories down throughout the years, and in law enforcement, you do a lot of writing. And then when I pastored and I ministered from time to time, you write a lot of sermons.
Sure.
So I wanted to start writing, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so before we get into the book, what do you bowl typically?
Let's see, my average is about a 205, and I'm always one strike short of that perfect game. So,
Wow, I need one of those. So let's talk about the book, Anointed for Leadership. How did you get into the book, and why did you want to write it? And kind of, for me it was interesting. I'm only halfway through it, but just that first chapter is like boom, and it just kind of hit you. Kind of a rough childhood, witnessing a lot of crime, bad things, waking up in a puddle of blood. Why don't you get into that?
okay. Well, I've always wanted to write. I've always been a writer, and even in school, in my bachelor's program, I was a pretty good writer, and the instructors were using my papers as examples. So I've always wanted to write. I got a confession from a serial killer, and after that, the gentleman, he wrote a book, Murder on the Rails. And he said that the detective said that he was the detective that unlocked the shocking secrets of the boxcar killer. Well, I got a confession from this serial killer, and this gentleman, he didn't even want to come down and interview him, but he wrote a book. And I said, I should have wrote a book, And so I've always written things down throughout the years, but Mike, my main goal is always to help somebody. If I can help somebody with the story that I tell, if I can help someone with the story I tell about being a pastor and one of the toughest challenges I've ever dealt with, and someone is helped by that, if I can help a young person to realize their purpose, even though they've gone through adversity and it's real, but don't use that to hold you back, if I can encourage a young person, then I will have accomplished my goal. But I've always wanted to write, and so I just sat down and I just started writing, and almost lost all the information because my computer shut down, but I just sent my wife a PDF the night before.
Nice.
And so, and I had to learn 2 software programs in the process. So my main goal is always to help people. That's why I got into law enforcement. That's why I got into politics, and that's why I got into ministry.
I don't want to give away too much that's in the book about your childhood, because I think it's kind of, people need to feel that from you. But how did that childhood experience kind of push you towards law enforcement? And because you saw a lot of wrongs.
Right.
And so in a way, did that make you want to do a lot of rights for other people?
Well, I was maybe just summing up my law enforcement career and trying to say, why did I get into law enforcement? Why did God have me get into law enforcement? What led me towards that direction? And as I look at this book, when I was in the 6th grade, I had an instructor named Jean Sims. And she really loved her kids. She loved us. And she had us to write all of our stories down. And she collected our work for the whole year. And she didn't put any check marks on it. She didn't grade it. It's like she wasn't judging it. But in this book that I saved, and I still have it today, 40-something years later, she had us to write down our stories. And I was always the superhero that was saving the damsel in distress and trying to, arrest the bad guy. And I was Harper boy,
And that's in the book.
Yeah, it's in the book. I was Harper boy, and I didn't know it, but that teacher was kind of directing me towards my purpose. So, growing up in Oakland and having a rough start in the housing projects, my mother was a single mom with 3 kids, and I was the youngest. So we had our challenges, and I saw crime and things like that around me. But it was when she married a man who was just out of the military. He had served during Vietnam, and he was responsible for giving us our solid values, teaching me to serve in ministry, to serve in the community. Sometimes he would loan us out to go and help people, So that's where I really got my values.
Would you say that music kind of saved you and kept you on the right track?
Absolutely, and I say that in the book. I played the trombone in school, and even now I love instruments. I have a guitar at home. I have a piano that was built in 1880. I talk about that in the book. I have saxophones and things like that. But I was the musician for the church. Found out at the age of 12 that I had a talent for music. So having a strict father, but also music, kept me, I believe, on the straight and narrow. I think that's what did it.
And so what types of music do you play?
I mostly play gospel because I play for churches, since I was a young kid. And so, but I like all kinds of music, but mainly, learning gospel songs to play for a praise team or play for a choir.
And so, the title of the book's Anointed for Leadership, and you went from law enforcement to politics. How did that even, why'd you go into politics? First the school board, and then city council, and then mayor.
Right. Well, to me, when I say leadership, the Bible talks about if you want to be a leader, you need to be a servant. And so to me, anointed for leadership could simply have been entitled anointed for service. I believe that God has gifted me to be able to serve. I have never found a closed door when it comes to serving my community. You can always serve your community, and you don't need a title to lead, And so, ask me the question again.
What made you want to go into politics?
Okay.
Because I know that just from what I saw, it was you guys seemed like you were on the right track, and then this crime thing happened, which wasn't no fault of the council, previous councils, but it seemed like all the blame went towards you because you took the blame. You didn't really put it on the rest of your council. You got blamed for a lot of things that I thought was unfair, just mean, nasty things, attempted recall as well. So, that when you say leadership, you took that stance, but it was the council as a whole. So what made you want to even go into politics to even get to that point?
Okay.
Loaded question.
Right. So going into politics, I was really motivated by the idea that I could serve where I live. I was a police officer in Emeryville for 8 years, rose through the ranks of sergeant. I was a lieutenant in Tracy, 17 years in Emeryville, 8 years in Tracy. I was a lieutenant. But the opportunity to serve where I live, to make my city better where I live. Tracy was the second safest city in Northern California of cities over 75,000. So I would look from time to time, nobody knows this, but I would search the city's website to look and to see how I could volunteer. I was already sitting on a school attendance review board for a high school. I volunteered to do that. I was a school resource officer. I volunteered to do that. When I was a lieutenant for Tracy, I was a part of a group called Neighbors for Change. I would meet with community groups and help them to solve their own problems like lights out in the city, community beautification. How do you as a community address that for yourself? So I was always involved. I was on the board of directors for the American Red Cross. I was their faith-based coordinator. I was on a board of directors for a living water ministries for pregnant teens. So I was always wanting to volunteer my time, provide my leadership to help. So when I saw the opportunity to serve where I live, I would look up, appeals board. Okay, I have a law enforcement background, so I can't serve on the appeals board. Those are the rules.
Sure.
And then I saw an opportunity for school board. And I says, wow, this might be my opportunity. And so I looked it up, did a little research, put in an application, interviewed before the community, and they selected me, and I served on the school board.
What was it about the school board that made you want to go there?
I had children in the school district. I moved to Antioch because of the school district. I moved to Antioch because I thought their school district was a little better than the others around, and I had children, and I wanted the best for my children. So what people don't know is when I served on the school board and part-time with the city council, a lot of times I had to use my vacation time. And sometimes I was spending more vacation time almost than I was earning just to serve. At one time my job gave me a hard time, and I found a law in the Peace Officer Bill of Rights that says no peace officer can be prevented from serving as a director for a school district. So I had to submit a letter, and you got to let me serve. But see, people don't know that part of it.
They only criticize.
Right. It's like I just want to serve. But then getting back to
now, what's your thoughts about the school district today?
I don't. Today, I think we all need to get together as parents, as community. They're our kids. They don't just belong to the school district during certain hours, but they're all our kids. Parents need to get involved. It's the parents, it's the city government, it's the churches, and we all have to get together to make our school better. Providing tutoring, churches can provide tutoring, volunteer programs can provide tutoring. But I have a lot of thoughts about that. That's another talk show.
Sure.
But you asked a question about some of the things that happened while I was mayor, and I wanted to be a good leader, and I know that a good leader doesn't pass the buck. I never said, I'm not the police chief. Why are you blaming me for crime? I never said, we're an entire city council. I only have one vote. I never said that. What I did say was this is what we're doing to address the problems in our community. What I did do was sat down and talked to the principal of Deer Valley High School. I offered to go in and speak to the kids, and that was not, I didn't get any feedback on that. I said, I'm the mayor of the city. So I set up canopies outside in the parking lot where the kids were congregating, and I started talking to them to see what was going on, what can we do. And I met a lot of great students with bright futures, football players, track stars, kids who were artists. They were excited to meet me and to talk to me, and then met with, I talk about in the book how we all met together, police chief and school board members, and we worked out some solutions to the problems out there.
And I always found that, like, with the students, if you show them a little bit of respect, they'll reciprocate that.
Right.
And that wasn't happening at that point. It was all how bad Deer Valley was, how bad the schools were, but really the community wasn't showing the students respect. So it's kind of like, who's going to budge first to open that conversation? I think a lot of that early success in changing the rhetoric, really, I mean, you had to hit a low, and it was McDonald's and Taco Bell closing and being on national news.
Right.
At that point, okay, enough's enough, let's figure this out. And 4 years later, I mean, you haven't even had an incident in Deer Valley Plaza,
Right.
So this is baby steps, and people, they can complain and blame all they want, but they need to step up, be part of the solution.
Yeah, and at that time I talked to the manager of the Deer Valley Plaza. We all met together. I believe that really there's no problem we can't solve if we put our heads together, if we meet and we work out some solutions. So met with management. One of the things they did was they were able to remove that smoke shop where the kids were hanging out. What the school decided to do was to gate part of the school to direct the students in a different area. The district attorney's office, they were there. They decided to charge parents who dropped their kids off specifically to fight, charge them in the gang unit. And
you had daily patrols too.
Right, daily patrols. Police department increased their patrols. What else? There were several things that we did, but coming together, we were able to solve some of the problems over there. I was teaching leadership at the high school, at Antioch High School, and one of my students, as I was talking about some of the issues over there, one of my students said, "Mr. Harper, that was me on the news." She said there was a girl bullying her, and she saw her at the plaza, and she attacked her. And she said she defended herself. I mean, this was the most calm, nicest young ladies that you ever want to meet. And she said she had to defend herself. And they kept repeating it on the news over and over. I believe there's no problem that we can't solve if we get together. And I am an optimist, and I don't pass the buck. I don't pass the buck. I don't blame other people. And that's what leadership is.
So how did you learn that, not to pass the buck? I mean, was there a lesson that just, okay, that's one of my core values?
I really don't know. I was the youngest child out of 3 children. I knew I had to take the blame for my brothers.
He played the piano too, right?
Yeah. So, no, I don't know. I think you just learn some of these things. You just learn some of these things over time. Leadership, you have to step up. You have to work out solutions. You know, even in law enforcement, the way you solve problems, scanning, analysis, response, and assessment. We do it. We did it all the time. You find solutions to problems.
So when it comes to leadership for you, what's kind of the biggest lesson you've learned while serving in a leadership role? I mean there's got to be a dozen at least.
That is a good question. I think the biggest lesson is you have to care about people. If you don't care about people, you're in the wrong business. I think that's really it. You have to love people, you have to care about people. I had a little book called Simple Gifts. It tells you how to do nice things for people. And over the course of my life, I've changed people's tires. You know, you saw the incident where I got out to help someone who was trapped in a car.
Yep.
But like the next couple of days, I was pushing someone's car who ran out of gas, and the person says, "Mayor, the mayor's pushing my car." I said, "Yeah, you need help, you know." And so we got him into the gas station, and says, "You need some money for gas." He says, "No, I have money for gas." I said, "Okay." And but my wife will tell you, that's what I do.
It's the little things.
Yeah, it's little things. You know, it's paying the person's toll behind you. You go to Starbucks, you take care of the person behind you. You know, those type of things. I went to a restaurant one day, and I see this young lady with 3 children. Reminds me of my mom and us 3 little boys. So on my way out, take care of the bill, you know, and don't say anything. You know, you have to love people. And I got in that line of work in politics because I have a love for people and I want to help people. That's why I got into law enforcement.
I want to close a little bit more about the book. What was your favorite thing about the book for you? Just the reflection of it, but was there a story that just kind of like, oh my God, I forgot about that. That's really cool. I can't believe that happened.
Right. There were some stories that didn't make the cut because I didn't want to offend anybody.
College? No,
Some law enforcement stories.
Got it.
I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to make anybody look bad. So there were some stories that didn't make it. There was a story where I had to get permission from someone, and I had to wait a couple weeks. And that was tough to write. You know, that was tough to get through. You know, she had some tears while writing this. It was a story about a young girl named Tierra Bell. I was pastoring at the time, and this young lady was running track, and she fell ill, and they thought she just was just over-exhausted. And turns out they didn't realize she needed CPR. You know, they ended up trying to save her. They defibrillated her for about over 20 minutes to the point to where she had severe burns on her chest. Well, she had to be meta-flighted from one hospital to another, and she survived, but with a disability. And I had to talk to the parents, ask them if it was okay. They could barely get through the chapter. They thanked me for sharing the story. And I share it from the perspective of a pastor. What do you do for a family like that? What do you do for a family when they're facing that type of crisis? What do? Well, you love on them. You have to be there with them. You have to feed them. You have to comfort them. You have to minister to them. And I call that chapter the ministry of presence. There is a ministry in you just being there by their side, crying with them, going through everything with them. And that was the toughest story in the book to write. And like I said, I had to go and get permission and wait for them to get back to me. They made a couple of recommendations to add this,
Sure.
you know, that type of thing. But
So would you say that, you know, you're not a police officer, you're not a mayor, you're not a council member, you're not a bowler. I mean, what you are is
that
somebody.
hurt. I'm not a bowler.
No, hold
hurt,
on.
Mike.
So, I mean, would you say that you're really more of just a helper? A community helper? Just trying to help people? I mean, could that really be your label?
You know what? I know I'm a leader, and leader means you serve.
Sure.
You know, and
but at the core, though, you want to help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your passion, a better way to word that is your real passion is helping people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I say that in a chapter where I talk about facing discouragement. And you know, sometimes you get into politics and you wonder, you know, should I do this? Am I really helping? You know, and I talk about how I was a little discouraged one day, and I was on the way home. And
So
that's
what was that? What was that thing that you were discouraged about?
Are you making a difference? You know, are you helping enough people? You know.
What was there a specific issue that?
No, not really. No, not really. It wasn't a recall. No, I am motivated by opposition. You know, I'm motivated by challenge. So no, it wasn't that. You know, it's like at the end of the day, you know, looking at my purpose and should I be doing this? And so I'm on the way home and I help someone who's trapped in a car. And then I go home and I start to contemplate my day, and I say to myself, and I think it's a small voice saying, you know, you're here to help people. That's when you are valuable. That's when you feel good, because that's your purpose, to help people.
And that was the night after a council meeting?
It was the night after council meeting, the night of that collision.
Yep.
You know.
And so that was kind of your turning point of, you know, let's just focus on helping people.
Yes.
Everything else will work itself out.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here for, to help people. That's what I enjoy doing.
And so, you know, before we close, how long did it take you to write the book, and where could people buy it, and how could they get it?
Right. Well, I think a lot of the stories have already been inside of me, and I may have mentioned something in a sermon, or I may have mentioned something in talking to people. But I really got motivated on June 29th. I was looking online, and this particular person said, just start writing. The best advice I can give you is to just start writing. So I started writing. I might be at the gym talking in my phone, dictating. I may wake up in the middle of the night, get a thought.
Sure.
And then I laid off for a couple months. I had to build a fence in my backyard, and I had to do some other things. But I pretty much finished around January, and then I started my editing phase. I told you I almost lost all the information. I had to learn 2 software programs in the process, InDesign and Photoshop, which is a good program if you want to write. So I got it finished, edited it. I'm happy with it. I can even see improvements needed as I learn more.
It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah,
it's never going to be perfect.
Absolutely. You can pick up the book on Amazon. Look up Anointed for Leadership, Wade Harper. And it might be on Kindle right now. The way Kindle formatting looks, I'm not sure about it, but it may be on Kindle.
So when do we get an audio version?
An audio version? Wow.
Kidding.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I want to thank you so much for coming
Mike.
in.
Right.
Buy the book. It's, I'm about halfway through. It's a really good read. Some of the stuff I'm just like, that really happened to you? So thank you so much for coming in. Again, I'm Mike Burkholder, Contra Costa Today. Please like, subscribe, follow. We'll see you again next time, and hopefully our roof stays plugged up.
Okay.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.